Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Step Up to the Mic. This is the place for aspiring and established speakers to take the stage, deliver their talks, and bring them directly to you. Folks, today's featured speaker. She is a CEO and founder of Seuss Plus. She's the author of Beyond the Ladder. She's the host of Be the Ripple and also the founder of the Ripple Network. Please welcome to the stage Sabine Hutchison.
Thank you very much, Rory. It's a pleasure to be here. So, life is, we will all complete this sentence differently. And for me, it's a mosaic of moments, some that fill us with moments of joy, like holding your child for the first time, and others that shatter us, like hearing devastating news from your doctor. There are also moments of celebration, like watching someone that you love cross the stage at graduation. And there are also days of heartbreak, like sitting beside a parent's at hospice. Life gives us triumph. It gives us defeat and joy, sorrow, and they're all woven together. And there is a deep interconnectedness between all of them. And my ending to that question about life is it's a wonder. It's full of mystery and it's full of the unknown. It's a beautiful interconnectedness. And I can say this even though I've experienced the betrayal of somebody that I've loved, the pain and the sadness of miscarriages and not being able to have children, and also fear. I'll never forget the day that I was at the airport in Brussels, Belgium, and during a terror attack, and there was chaos all around me and people screaming bomb. And I called my husband, and I had the biggest lump in my throat, which I even can get now, asking him if he knew what was happening. And his words, his voice was steady, his words weren't. And he said, Sabina, there's almost always a second bomb. And for the first time in my life, I looked around and I faced something that I'd never considered before, and that was the possibility of death. But life isn't just that one thing, it's a mosaic. Because I've also experienced the other side, the love of family, the warmth of friendship, and catching the gaze of my husband across the room with that lovely wink of I love you. And that's what makes life so extraordinary. It's a blend. It's this beautiful mosaic that creates endless opportunities for learning, for self-discovery, and for connection. So my journey has been shaped by countless ripples, moments that have left behind their mark, bring me to here, standing here today in front of you. Many turning points in my life, good, some have been devastating, but they've come down to three things that I like to talk about, and that's the risks, ripples, and resilience that all require to keep me going. So risk, it's this leap of possibility. And it's interesting because risk often makes us feel uneasy. And I actually Googled definitions of risk. I Googled the definition of risk. And it is defined as this exposure to the consequences of uncertainty and the possibility of loss or danger. But here's the thing, risk isn't just about danger, is it? It's also about possibility. And the possibility means that there are so many outcomes. Yep, some can be devastating, but others can be incredible. They can be life-changing experiences. And so when you face a big decision, do you often ask yourself, what if? What if I take this job? What if I love this person? What if? And do your thoughts spiral out of control? And do you often think of the worst case scenarios? Or do you consider all the wonderful, amazing things that could happen? Now, if we reframe that question and we think about instead of just asking, what if you ask yourself, what if I don't? How might my life change if I never take this leap? So I met my husband during a career break from the sciences. I studied chemistry and I started working for the magician David Copperfield. That's another story that we're going to get into another time. And we fell madly in love, head over heels. And after the European tour had ended, I returned to the US, and my husband, my now husband, returned to Germany. And a few months later, we were apart and we found a way to see each other again. And we started talking about me seriously coming to moving to Germany. And I asked myself, what happens if I don't move? Well, I spend the rest of my life wondering if I've missed the chance to be with a great love. So I moved. And I know it sounds so simple to say those words, but it wasn't. I was taking a huge risk. There was no job. I didn't speak German. I was leaving my parents, sisters, and friends far behind. But I packed two suitcases and I bought a one-way ticket and a big leap. And that single leap created a ripple that shaped everything. And I've been living in Germany now for almost 28 years. I'm surrounded by wonderful friends. I'm leading a company. I've written a book, and I feel like I'm making a meaningful impact on so many lives. So, one risk can change your life in such extraordinary ways. And my second R is ripples, the power of connection, that every action creates a ripple. Some are small, some are sweet experiences, and some are colossal. And regardless of their size, they're impactful, small or large, and they can be really far reaching. Our choices and our behaviors influence the people around us, who then influence other people. And so the ripples continue. And these moments connect us in ways that we don't always see. Um, I'd like to tell a story about one big ripple that started during my senior year of college. My parents were incredibly supportive, but the university that I attended in the US, I couldn't cover everything by my student loans and the support from my parents. I worked two jobs. And one of the jobs, one of my favorite ones, was working at Morningside Inn. It was a cozy little restaurant and it was nestled in the woods in Marable College in Tennessee. And it was run by two beautiful people, Tom and Nan Taylor. And they really became a second family for me. I babysat their children and I spent time with them. And we worked really closely together. And I also worked in the restaurant that they were running. And one evening after closing, you all kind of sit around and I let out this big idea. I mentioned, I wish that I could focus on my chemistry thesis my last year and spend that time working only in the restaurant without having to have the second job and juggling that. And I said, there has to be somebody out there that has money that wants to help me out. And Tom then said, he leaned back and said, how much are you talking about? And I laughed. I said, well, just a little bit, basics, rent and healthcare and some money for food. And then I'll work at the restaurant for the rest. And Tom told me he actually found someone a few weeks later and they wanted to remain anonymous. But they were willing to help me. And you can imagine, I couldn't believe it. This crazy idea that I let out that evening in the restaurant really helped me to focus on my studies in the senior year. And it was life changing. And I, of course, wanted to meet the person. And I asked Tom if he could set up a dinner and if that person could come. And when I came into the restaurant that evening, there in the corner was Tom, and I walked up to the table and I said, okay, when are they going to get here? I'm really excited. When will they arrive? And after a pause, he said, they're already here. And it doesn't matter how often I tell this story because I can feel the lump in my throat every time. And I seem to always get tears in because this moment was so impactful for me. So Tom then told me a beautiful story and went back generations actually from his side of the family. His father had moved to Maribel and didn't have enough money for university. And he actually found someone, a lady that was very wealthy in the community. And he said that she helped his father actually go to college when he went to Maribel. And all she wanted in return was that he do the same thing whenever he can. And she said, it doesn't have to be financial, but find ways to have an impact on other people's lives and to carry this on. And he gave me the same words. Sabina, give back. Do whatever you can in life, and you're not on this journey alone. So, this act of kindness left an everlasting mark on me. And these words, give back, and however and whenever you can, they continue to be a huge influence in my life and actions and the decisions that I make today. So, what I find really incredible is that this experience that happened 30, 35, even longer, almost 40 years ago, still weaves their way into my life today, into my actions, into my decisions, and everything that I do. And they really influence who I am. So fast forward 1998, and remember the one-way ticket that I told you about that I'd purchased. This led to another colossal ripple in my life. There I was in Germany. I was high on love, but I only had a 3-month visa, and I needed to stay and enter my friend Birgit, who was a really good friend of my husband's. And she introduced me to a gentleman. His name is Jamal Kuyash. And he was the director of a lab who thankfully spoke English because my German was non existent at that time. And Jamal and I had a lovely conversation, and he offered me a job. And this was very unusual for Germany at that time. It's a very conservative country. And so it was rather unusual that I got a job so quickly. So I was obviously over the moon. I could stay in Germany. And not only did Jamal touch my life, he also touched so many lives in so many different ways. His kindness, including what he did with me, will impact people for years to come. And unfortunately, he has passed away, but I think it's so important to continue his story and to tell the story of his generosity. And also that I asked for help and he extended his hand. And I think it's also important to reflect that we often think about asking for help can feel difficult. And if I go back to Google again, asking for help, the top result comes out and says, asking for help, getting the support you need without looking weak. And so this connection between asking for help and weakness just doesn't make any sense to me at all. But here's the thing, asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. I think, in fact, it's a sign of something completely different. Asking for help actually allows us to move forward, to adapt, and to grow. And so that brings me to my third R, and that's resilience, because it's through life's challenges and these moments of uncertainty that we build the strength to keep going. So, and that's what resilience is, it's building strength through challenges. And resilience for me is not this magically inborn trait or that a fairy godmother comes and waves her wand and then you have resilience. I see it more like a muscle and it grows. It grows with each challenge that we have, with each hardship that we face, but also with the joy that we face as well. That muscle grows. And for me, it actually goes back to my childhood. The lessons really started with my parents that they instilled in me. I recently interviewed my mom, which was a wonderful experience for my book, Beyond the Ladder. And in interviewing her for the book, she said, I never really thought about resilience. I just did it. I did what needed to be done for the family. And for me, that quiet determination left a huge mark on me. And my dad also, he is totally lives resilience in his own way. He does volunteer work. He works for the Lions Club, and he used to coordinate these events for, it was often fathers and sons, but there are 3 girls in my family, so there was no son to take to these events. And I, as the eldest, would go with my dad. And that the activities were more traditionally, again, what was considered for boys. It was target shooting, it was fishing rodeos. That's a very Southern thing. Not everybody may know what that is. And I was often the only person with pigtails there. And sometimes I got sideways looks from other dads, and some of the boys made fun of me. But you know what? That didn't bother my dad at all. He supported me, and I always felt like I belonged, no matter how others reacted. And he taught my sisters and I very practical tools as well. We could change tires, setting spark plugs. I don't even know if people do that anymore, but it shows the time as well. We built fences, all these little things that might seem ordinary, but they really taught me confidence. And they taught me perseverance and lessons that still serve me today. So, resilience can take lots of different forms. It can be from bouncing back from health issues, you can navigate relationship challenges or unexpected life changes, but it's about showing up every day. And some days require a lot more determination than others. There have been moments of brilliance, and sometimes things didn't go in my life as I'd planned. I've had stumbles, I've actually launched 4 startups and 2 of which failed. And not only did they leave me with financial losses, but they left me with heartbreak. Anyone who's ever started something like that, started a company, knows that feeling. And yet I got up because resilience isn't about avoiding failure. It's about showing up every day. And even when things don't go as planned. So for me, life is a wonder. Whether it's running a company or a family or whatever you're doing in your life, there are incredible highs and there can be really crushing lows. But by asking for help, we remind ourselves that we're not alone. And each time that we extend someone a helping hand, it strengthens not just our resilience, but it's also this connection to other. Because this life of ours is not without bumps and wrong turns. It's taking risks, making ripples, and being resilient that are all these fabulous parts of our life journey. So I wish you all a life of wonder and possibilities. And as you reflect on your life, how long will the list of times be that you let fear guide your decisions? Not taking the job because it felt too big, or not falling in love because you were afraid that they would not love you back. So, my wish for you is that list is really short and that instead you've lived boldly, whether it's by jumping in feet first or dipping your toe into the pool of life, creating colossal, sweet, or subtle ripples. Because every ripple, no matter its size, carries a meaningful and lasting impact. So take risks and ask for help when you need it. But what I think more importantly is like Tom and his father and me, share your stories because these are the impact that is going to go on much further and can also impact others as well and continue to reach out farther than we can imagine. So my life is wonder, and I wonder, what is yours?
Sabina Hutchison, everybody. Sabina, that was awesome. I loved every minute of that talk. I was honestly just riveted to listening to everything that you were saying. Amazing stories. Amazing
Thank you.
stories. I love the way you did that. And I have to say, when you were telling the story about Tom and meeting the man at the restaurant,
Mhm.
I'm over here. I'm writing down, was Tom the guy at the restaurant? Because that was going to be a question to ask you in the follow-up,
It
and
was,
then
but I had no idea when it happened. I had no
really,
idea. No, I didn't know it was him. I really didn't because he was so well connected in the community. And and Tom was also no one that had that, we sometimes have this idea of wealth and what people have and how they can give financially. And I tend to put people in, they maybe live differently, but he led a very quote ordinary life. And so didn't associate him with having the finances to be able to do that.
hmm, interesting. I mean, you
Yeah.
never can
So
tell.
no, I really had no idea. And it does. Every time I tell that story, I've just said this so many times and I still somehow it just yeah, puts a lump in my throat because it's so special that somebody does something like that to get this help, I think is so amazing.
That's great. Great message through the entire talk. Also, the now your book, Beyond the Ladder. I
Mhm.
want to cover just a couple of these points, and of course, I'm going somewhere with this. But in our
Mhm.
Q&A, I just like to make sure that I get a little bit out about this because you mentioned it. Can you tell us a little bit about what people can expect if they pick up Beyond the Ladder and they start reading it?
Mhm. Yeah, you can tell I like stories. So Beyond the Ladder has a lot to do with stories. I interviewed 37 women because I feel that these stories are so impactful. And I feel that we can connect through stories. And if we just write words and theory and you can connect with it, but I feel not as deeply as if you hear a story from someone else that has potentially gone through a similar situation. So what I've done with the book and what people can expect is to get some theory about ideas about going beyond the ladder because our careers aren't too well, mine certainly hasn't been. I mean, you can tell it's been, a zigzag. And and I think I one of the things that I really want to do is get people comfortable with the zigzag and to be okay with that, that it doesn't have, you don't have to have this this ladder that you climb. And the stories, the chapters of the book are all about living your values, also your brand. How do you live? Finding a mentor or a coach. All the very kind of, I'm a very practical kind of person. And so I wanted to put in practical ideas and theories and stories that people can focus on when they're growing their own career. So that's what I hope that people get out of it. Inspiration, ideas, and also some very practical things that you can do to move forward because there's a workbook with the book as well. So that goes back to the practice piece. So every chapter has a book, has a chapter in the workbook that you can write out, lots of empty space and sparks for ideas, exercises. Because again, I find some of the challenges are when we take on, aspects of our career, you open a page of a journal and you're like, oh shit, I don't know where to start. So I try to give people a starting point and to help guide them.
Nice, nice. Okay. The I always like to check things out, and I know you have a podcast too, and so I always like to just get an idea of who's coming on my shows. You have an
Mhm.
episode where you interviewed some men about a leadership book for
I
women.
did.
This is
They,
the book.
this is the book.
I'm just not
Yeah.
putting this together because, of course,
Yeah.
I couldn't
It's the
listen to all
book.
of your episodes and everything else,
Yeah.
But so this isn't, even though you interview 37 women in this book, and it is directed, for women in terms of that, it
Mhm.
also had an impact on these men that you interviewed.
Yeah, that was great to hear. I was pleasantly surprised because the book is focused for women. A lot of the work that I do a lot of volunteer work for women and encouraging gender equality and equity, also in women's health. And I was like, I'm curious to hear if some of the topics also resonate with men. Are we that different? Or does the tone of my writing also resonate for a man as well? Because obviously I've very much focused it for women. So it was great to hear that it did. And even the thing, like I have these cards, I have them here actually because I pulled them. I did cards for each of the chapters as well. And one of the gentlemen talked about that he actually uses these for his coaching sessions with his employees. So that was really nice to hear because I would have thought that this would be definitely more female focused than a man would use. But again, there we go with our stereotypes, right? And the biases that we have in our own heads.
Exactly. Well, I just wanted to point that out because, men can get something out of this book too. So they
Yeah,
definitely,
I hope
everybody
so.
should go
Yeah.
check this out. The quickly on the podcast, that is that a fairly new venture, or
It
about how many
is.
episodes do you have on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I started it last year and it is a fairly new venture. It kind of all started with everything kind of came together when I'd launched the book and the Ripple Network and then the podcast. So it was all happened last year. Yeah, so I'm
Excellent.
very new at that. But I love asking questions. It fits really nicely. Um, you know, I'm one of those people that if I leave a party, I'll know a lot of things about a lot of people because I'm just curious about people. I love listening to their stories. And so that
Well,
makes it fun.
that's awesome. That's one of the best things about being a host is you get to find
Yeah.
out more about folks.
Oh,
So
it's so cool. I love it. Yeah.
I love it. Now, on top of all of this, you've founded the Ripple Network. So
Mm.
tell everybody what the Ripple
Mhm.
Network is, what that's about, and why you're so passionate about this.
Yeah. I feel that so many of us have so many stories to tell. And I think I learned that myself as I went through a course to work on, this talk and to be able to weave a story together in order to tell it, to actually engage with people and to have an impact. And I noticed that I wanted to do more of that, but I didn't have a lot of places to practice. And that's what I love what you do. I think it's phenomenal because that's what I feel is missing in the world is that these opportunities that you see a lot about TED, which is great, but not everybody can get on a TED stage or has the opportunity to do that. So my goal was to open up the door for that opportunity behind your desk and in whatever country you are to practice. And so the Ripple Network is all about um, learning and working on your speaking. And we think about it often to do a speech or an inspirational talk or a keynote, but I also think it's about how you engage with your employees. How are you in a board meeting? How just how do you engage with individuals? And it's been built on actually simple principles that you get. We have a cohort that goes through, and you get activities. So each week you're given a challenge, and it starts with the basics of introducing yourself. How do you introduce yourself? And how do you introduce yourself in different situations? And even that is like, ooh, how are you going to introduce yourself? And if you're one of the ladies that I interviewed had the opportunity to be literally this typical story about you're beside the CEO in a lift to go up to a meeting, and she had a story ready, and that impacted her career. So if you have these stories ready, then you're able to pull them out, and you learn and you practice and you become more comfortable with it, with that type of engagement. So that's what the Ripple Network is about. It's about allowing yourself to get more comfortable in that space. And you don't have to go do a big speech. We're not all big leaders of countries, and we don't need to get on stages, but we do, I think, need to work on being able to engage in a relaxed way with different people and to feel comfortable with different stakeholders.
I love that. Well, and 10, 15 years ago, I mean, to get on a stage, you actually had to get on an actual stage.
Yeah,
Now in the world,
exactly.
everything is a stage. This is a
Yeah.
stage, your podcast
I
is a
know.
stage and so on. So
I love it,
that's
don't
great.
you? I think that that's so fabulous that we
Oh,
have so many opportunities. And it's people like you too that are opening those doors for people to do that. Like you're giving people a stage that would potentially not have that somewhere else. And I think that that's just so valuable.
thanks for that. I appreciate you coming on here and taking advantage of that too, and using our stage
Yeah.
to get your message out. It's really been great listening to what you had to say about all this. You are the CEO and founder of Seuss Plus. Now, I didn't get a
Yeah.
chance to really talk to you about that in the pre-interview, so I'm just going to
Mhm.
go cold into this right now.
All
Explain that
right.
to everybody a little bit.
Yeah, that's that. If you remember in the story, I studied chemistry, and so I have a
Uh-huh.
science background, and so that whole side of my life, it's like I have different areas that I work in, is focused on clinical research and supporting biotech companies as they develop new products for patients. And so we support smaller organizations in bringing medications to the market. And often more in like rare diseases, also with genetic issues. So it's a space that helps ultimately patients getting cured. So that's the goal.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. That sounds amazing. You
Thank
have
you.
a lot going on, Sabina.
I
Oh my
do.
goodness. I mean,
I
how do you
know.
fit all this into one day
I
of
don't
your
know.
life?
I'm trying to get more structured, but I love it too. I have people that support me, so it's not all myself. That's this question. That's the thing about asking for help too. I decided last quarter because I self-published the book, and I also kind of the Ripple Network. I'm doing a lot of this stuff myself. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. So I actually worked with Gina Dunn, who's done most of my marketing, and she is helping me now get things moving and starting with my social media and to do things. And so it's asking for that help, but it's just being open for that and not thinking I have to do it all myself because I probably would be like on the floor if I was trying to do everything 100% myself. So it's
Absolutely.
asking for that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I love all of this information. I love the talk that you put out there, and I'm grateful that you came on the show today. I don't normally do this, but given all of your qualifications, I have to ask this question. So this is to kind of wrap things up here. Um, what's a good piece of advice to leave for our listeners? We have a lot of
Hmm.
speakers, we have aspiring speakers, we have people who are
Yeah.
interested in being speakers. You run the Ripple Network. I mean, you have some experience doing this. What's your best piece of advice to people who really would
Hmm.
like to become a speaker at some point?
Hmm.
Where might be a great place to start, or a good standard of practice? What's your best
Yeah.
piece of advice for them?
I think that's the magic word. It's practice. We, we learn a new sport and we get in there every day. You go to the gym, you have a schedule. You go to the gym, you work out. You want to learn a new language, you put a schedule together. You learn, you practice, practice, practice. I think that's my biggest suggestion for anyone. If you want to do something new, you have to practice. And we have to put the work in, things, I wish I had, could, Harry Potter, the magic wand and all those things would work, but I haven't found that yet. So that's what I would say is that you have to decide you want something and then you have to practice and to be gentle with yourself, challenge yourself and be gentle with yourself at the same time and start with the simple things. How am I introducing myself? And say it out loud because speaking saying the things out loud is completely different than reading it or rehearsing it in your mind because it's going to come out completely differently. And I think that that's what so many people do. I've asked them, so have you practiced? And they're like, oh, I've read through it. I'm like, no, 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 no. Have those words left
Right.
because it's the pauses. And, I noticed it today too, because there were a couple of things I was like, oh, wait a minute, I wanted to say that and had to go back. And I'm constantly practicing too. And I was like, I bumbled a few times. I'm like, whatever, the story's still there. So be comfortable that you have some ums and ahs too, but just to keep practicing.
Great advice. I mean, all the way around, great advice. So we're the only ones who know that we aren't perfect, in what we're trying to do
Mm,
and who feel like we have to be. So
yeah.
I absolutely love that. All right, folks, CEO and founder of Seuss Plus, author of Beyond the Ladder, host of Be the Ripple, and founder of the Ripple Network, which just sounds incredibly cool. Sabine Hutchison. Sabine, thank you so much for being on today. I just love it. I had a great time talking to you and learning more about you, and I just really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you, what you're doing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Folks, that's been another episode of the Step Up to the Mic. If you're an aspiring or current speaker and you want to bring your talk to the masses, message us today. Never stop talking and let us help you to step up to the mic.